Hey folks, here OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the Microsoft Surface Touch cover. This is the original version without that backlighting, but it still works pretty well for the original Surface, Surface 2 as well as the Surface Pro. And it connects magnetically, includes that data contact pin, which allows you to type right away. And it's that first, innovative keyboard design that Microsoft released. Although, as a keyboard, it worked decently, not the best in the world. Still not as great as a regular chiclet keyboard because it doesn't have that much travel, not nearly as good as a mechanical keyboard, but it keeps the portfolio almost impossibly slim, and that was the main selling point of the Surface touch cover. They did a ton of engineering to make this possible, and a lot of ads to make people want to purchase this for a rather hefty $120 at the time of its release. And it came with a number of different colors which were vibrant as well as attractive, and had an integrated trackpad which was easy to use and supported multi-touch gestures out of the box. Had this very interesting felt material. So we'll take a closer look at the design of the keyboard in a moment. We have this red version here for review purposes. Otherwise, as far as the packaging contents are concerned, you can slide actually the plastic off, and otherwise there are a few cards actually stapled onto the sides there that gives you a bit of info as far as a warranty and also how to set things up for the first time, how to attach that from Microsoft. So it tells you the multiple angles, how they work, how to attach it and detach your Surface onto the case. It's using magnets which are extremely strong actually, so you don't have to worry about this falling loose. Even if you're holding the tablet from the hinges and shake it with the keyboard attached, it's not going to accidentally fall off. There's also a quick start guide, warranty guide info, and that's basically it. So taking a closer look at the keyboard next, again we have a very almost thin look going on. It has this matte finish both on the front as well as on the back. I think this is an interesting texture to play with just because it prevents fingerprints as well as scratches from getting attracted over time. However, on the other side, because they use this more sandpaper-like texture, even though it feels pretty good, it's easy to clean, with a wipe or with a sheet of paper, it also, resists any damage if you accidentally spill some liquid just because there aren't any moving parts here that you can see. It does wear off in terms of the surface color, so it does get discolored after you start typing on it for a few months, and that's a process that some people have noted, and you can tell with used surfaces floating around on the internet. So it's one of the areas where it's not quite as good as a typical, maybe plastic keyboard, just because it doesn't wear off, in the individual keys as easily. Eventually, of course, it still does, but it takes a little longer. But the feeling here is decent. I would say it's a full size, or at least as close to a full-size experience as Microsoft could get, for a almost 11-inch statue of the width here. So it does a decent job with what the room that they had to play around with, and it has standard keys for going into the Windows menu. There's a pretty nicely sized spacebar in the center here, as well as a dedicated arrow keys for selection. And the very top here, there's a number row as well as a media controls for going through things like the volume settings, the mute settings, going through multiple screens, and going through some of those tasks. You can still perform regular things like a print screen, so on and so forth, using this keyboard just fine. And it supports, of course, tapping on multiple keys at the same time. The very top here features access to that unique data as well as magnetic hinge that attaches quite easily with a solid and also satisfying click. And located on the bottom here after the trackpad, which could be a little bit larger admittedly, there's access to left and right click keys for selection. You can also tap on just the trackpad itself. These keys are nearly invisible, offers a very modern overall look and design, and the overall resting area for your hands when you are typing is actually quite comfortable and wide. So from a design perspective, this is certainly quite attractive looking. Although utility, as far as the typing really fast, you do have to press a bit harder than a regular keyboard. And we'll talk a bit more about the performance after we attach this onto a Surface and give you guys a quick demo. Attaching the touch keyboard is quite simple thanks to the use of this magnetic hinge, which means that as long as you're in about the same position, it will attach automatically to the bottom of the Surface. Afterwards, again, it is extremely firm and it's not going to fall loose accidentally. What's nice about this particular cover is it's also smart, so if you close it up, it's also going to put the Surface to sleep, and when you open it up again, thanks to the use of that ambient light sensor on the top of the computer, it's going to wake up, so you don't have to press the power key each time you want to use and start typing on the device. Otherwise, if we take a closer look at the typing experience, I have an opened Word document here. We're going to start with the trackpad. Again, the material of the touch keyboard is slightly coarse and matte. As a result, it makes it a bit easier to use the trackpad and gives you a bit more precision when you're moving along using your fingers. So if we do something like a quick typing test here, and I do this is a test. Let's type on this, press the cursor again. Again, in order to create this, you do have to really press your hands very firmly onto this keyboard. So compared to something like a membrane keyboard or even something like a mechanical keyboard, it does require more force. It is something that you get used to after a bit of practice, but it's still not the most comfortable experience in the world. It doesn't give you the most tactile feedback, and there is the ability for you to turn the volume up on the surface, and it creates a software sound, a clicking sound to kind of tell you you're clicking a key. But that's all the the feeling that you're going to get from actually typing on this thing. So a lot of time when you're first using this, especially if you do something like this as a test, you're going to create a lot more errors if you start typing on it at the same pressure that you're used to on a regular keyboard. Now, what's nice about the Surface, however, is that it does have a lot of very strong predictive text as well as the autocorrection functions from the software side of things. So even if you misspell something, a lot of the time it will correct that error, especially for the applications designed by Microsoft out of the box. That tends to work a lot better, such as the version of Internet Explorer that's on here. If you're typing emails and documents, you'll notice that the autocorrection function does help you in this process, and it does make it a bit more bearable. However, again, as a keyboard, it's not the best in the world. So to create this super slim portfolio, they definitely had to make sacrifices, and this is one of the examples. So not too bad, but it definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. So one of the other things I want to quickly point out about the touch keyboard is that although it does have a nice amount of media controls on the very top for things like changing the screen brightness as well as for search keys, media keys, it lacks a few other shortcuts that we expect from a regular keyboard, such as a dedicated print screen key. You have to press on shortcuts, or you can tap on the Windows icon and the volume up and volume down keys to create a print screen function, but it doesn't have a dedicated key on the top right hand corner as you see there. So there are a few shortcuts that are missing on here that I wish would be present. One of the other limitations of this first generation touch keyboard is that it doesn't have a backlight, which means that if you're typing in the dark, again, it becomes a bit more challenging, even though the keys themselves are quite spacious and the layout here is rather standard. And finally, all in all, really, this is quite an innovative design going on, and you do get extreme portability with this. And the fact that it works both as a smart cover and a keyboard is quite unique. It has, again, this very soft material, so it doesn't scratch your screen. It actually cleans your screen each time that you close it and open it, and it closes very nicely. It doesn't seem to pop open very often, which is nice to see. And again, it works as long as you attach it correctly, and the actual responsiveness of the keys, as long as you're, again, pressing hard enough, is pretty decent. So as far as a keyboard goes, I would say it's decent, still not as good as the Type keyboard, but it is, again, a very innovative design that really helped Microsoft sell the Surface as this interesting alternative to the iPad and other high-end Android tablets that were on the market at the time. Thanks for watching this video review of the first generation touch keyboard here at OS Reviews.